Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Leanne Hulka. Leanne, let's start with you. President Biden has called this a solemn moment for the country and that a constitutional right has been taken away. You helped found Hoosier Women Forward. What was your reaction when you heard the opinion today?
Thanks, Scott. I think Biden called the decision tragic, and I'd say this decision put American democracy and our rights and liberties enshrined in the Constitution on critical life support. I mean, this is the first time the Supreme Court of the United States has taken away a right of the American people, a right that has been protected for 50 years in this country. This decision shook me and most of America and the world, for that matter, to the core. I'd also like to point out, let's not forget this week the Supreme Court in Carson v. Macon also eradicated separation of church and state. And there's no question that the founders intended religion and government to be separate. And this Supreme Court's current disregard for longstanding rights and precedent is frightening.
Allie, let's turn to what happens next. This is a day that conservatives have hoped to reach for quite some time. Polling suggests there's strong public support for the right to an abortion to remain legal. Do Republicans in Indiana or elsewhere take a risk by moving too fast to outlaw abortion in states like Indiana?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I would like to say that that sentiment alone is why this is not in any way a hindrance to democracy. This is actually a step forward to democracy, because what this did was return this concept to the proper place with the states and with the people. So the bottom line of what happened here today is that power was returned to the people. So laws can be amended and overturned. That's the entire point. So with whatever Indiana does next, whatever the state legislature does, who are elected by the people to make these types of decisions on their behalf, that can be overturned. It can be amended in the future. And that's the entire point.
What's your take on what the lawmakers should or would do when they meet next month if they decide to take up the abortion issue? Ban abortions without exception, even exceptions for rape, incest, or life of the mother?
Well, I'm not an elected lawmaker. I think if they do determine that it's the right time to take on this decision, they're going to listen to their constituents. They're going to have a reasoned discussion about it. I think what we saw here in this opinion is that the Mississippi law at the issue here contained exceptions. It contained exceptions for the health of the mother. I think, we saw in the concurrence by Justice Kavanaugh sentiment that exceptions would be, widely applicable and that they would be present in much of the legislation that would likely come out of this. And so I do think that exceptions will be considered. And I think this will all be taken very seriously by those in the legislature who are elected to have these discussions.
Many people have focused clearly on the Alito writing in this, though the other conservative justice has weighed in with their own opinions. Justice Thomas suggests the court should now review cases that legalize same-sex marriage, the use of contraceptives, and more. Leanne, are you concerned with where the court goes next?
I'm absolutely concerned, Scott. But before I answer that question, I want to go back to something Allie said. We're going to hear this a lot. We're going to hear, well, let the states decide. It's up to the states. And what I would say to that is that the problem is in Indiana, we have one of the worst gerrymandered states. And so who is in the legislative body making our laws and decisions doesn't actually truly reflect who we are as a state. And that's a problem. And until Indiana implements bipartisan redistricting commissions so that those in power don't continue to draw their own lines, that argument has absolutely no weight for me, and we won't be able to protect women and other important rights that the Supreme Court has just eviscerated. But I think absolutely Clarence Thomas just provided a roadmap for where he and people that think like him want the Supreme Court to go, and I think it's signaling to legislatures to remove even more rights. And I also want to remind everybody that Senator Braun in our own state, our own senator, he also referenced very recently that states maybe they should reconsider the same-sex marriage protections. And so while Republicans here in Indiana and elsewhere across the country celebrate a pro-life victory for the unborn child, I want to remind everybody what's happening here in Indiana. 1 in 4 women experience intimate partner violence. We have some of the worst maternal and infant mortality rates in the nation. Over 50 of our counties in Indiana are OB deserts. So we will limit abortion access, knowing that 1 in 2 counties can't even adequately care for women and babies. And by the way, there's no legal requirement for pharmacies to provide or dispense birth control. The cost of childcare has also risen 41% during the pandemic. And last I checked, we don't have paid family leave. So while the Republicans celebrate this pro-life victory and a great day for democracy. I want to remind Hoosiers that the legislators have failed to set up conditions in this state for us to be truly pro-life after babies are born.
We are, of course, between a primary and a midterm election. Perspective from both of you as time runs short. Allie, you first. What does this do for November?
Well, I would like to jump in on that because first and foremost, to say that this is a gerrymandered state is wrong because those lines can absolutely be taken to the court, and they have been and have been determined to be acceptable to the court. So if anybody wants to get out there and campaign and fundraise and elect people to reflect their views, they are more than welcome to do so. And next, I want to comment on the piece about Justice Thomas because Justice Alito, in his majority opinion, said himself that nothing in this opinion should be understood to cast out on precedent that did not concern abortion. And anything that is put out there aside or contrary to that is just a talking point that's manufactured to rile up people that don't understand the concept of stare decisis and what precedent really means. This will not impact any decision that is not about abortion. So I want to just set the record straight on that. As for the November elections, this is what this is all about. This is a matter to be determined by the states. The word abortion does not appear anywhere in the Constitution. There is no constitutional right to abortion. If people want to get out there, like I said, and campaign for the people that reflect their beliefs, they have every right to do that, and I think they should. People have the right to have their voices be heard on policy matters. This is a policy matter that is rightfully determined by the people in each state to elect representatives that reflect their views, and I think this will have an impact in November, and I think we will see that, and I think it's great. That's how it should be.
Leanne, your take on how this heads toward the election?
Yeah, so I've always thought Republicans have had to work 2 or 3 times harder than liberals or Democrats because they typically represent the minority views in this country. And they're also enjoying extreme structural advantages, especially we see with 2 senators from every state. It doesn't exactly reflect our population. And so I think now maybe the tables are turned. I know liberals and Democrats and everyday people are absolutely exhausted fighting to protect rights that they thought they had, to protect a constitution and a democracy that they grew up thinking that they had. And so we may see greater turnout from the Democratic side. We might see, like I said, everybody's exhausted, but I think that Democrats and people that care about the future of our country are going to be working harder than ever to do what they can to protect this country and to protect the democracy.
The conversation will continue. We'll let you two continue offline. We always appreciate it, though. Democrat Leanne Hulka and Republican Allie Bartlett, thanks for your time and perspective tonight.